I think that's everything. Okay. Pull that over here. Let me just organize my screens and then we're all set. Okay, that's there. And then I just need to move you guys right here. And now we're good. Hi, everybody. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
That's what we like to hear, Mark. So we are live on different platforms. So if you see me talking to other things, you guys aren't live. You guys aren't on there, but we will hear your voice. So just so you know, but they can't see you at all. That way other people can ask questions too who are not here in this room specifically. So just giving you that heads up. So this is the Oakbridge Q and A, and this is where you can ask any questions that you have about your mediumship, psychic development, anything related to spiritual things in general. It's pretty open to pretty much anything. What I'm not doing, which is often wondered, is am I doing readings right now? Am I answering questions like spiritual questions and that sort of thing? No, I'm not doing any readings right now. But yeah, so any other questions are more than welcome. Hi, Karen. Nice to have you here. So yeah, I always give preference to the people who are actually in the room with me. So Anne Marie and Mark, you both kind of get preference. So anytime you have a question, feel free to shout it out. But yeah, we can start whenever one of you have a thought to share.
Mine is, I don't know if mine isn't actually just a personal question, but I think other people who are developing their psychism may get somewhere where this situation might come across.
Sure.
So I wanted to put it out here. But if you feel like it's too personal, I can always just shoot you an email.
Nope. This you can ask things that are just specifically to you. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay. So this year I started to notice a pattern of getting premonitions. And I've been keeping a journal. And then when the evidence comes in that this wasn't just a daydream, this is an actual premonition, I write the date down and I write notes about what I saw versus how it happened.
Cool.
And premonitions to me feel so much more real than working in a medium study with another medium and you're just trying to pick up something on them. I feel like people who actually need these messages, for me, is when the message comes through super strong and loud.
Yeah.
So I love getting premonitions because I know that this is a needed message. So I've had quite a few big ones this year, and I've been trying to feel my way through why does this information come through to us in a premonition, right? Why is this important? Is it important? When is it just random? Like I do you remember it was the thing was back in February, it was back in the winter. The ship in Brooklyn that had the sails with like it looked like all the ropes and webs, and it crashed into the bridge, and the mast came down with everybody on it. I saw that. It didn't look exactly like that to me, but I saw this like spider web kind of a pattern with people, and I saw the people falling. I documented. I saw lights like coming down. And shrapnel, and I documented what I saw. And then when that happened, it was like a lightning bolt hit me in the head, and I said, that's what that was. And then I went back to my notes and I documented the two compared to each other. But I've also had a lot of premonitions this year about friends and family members. I had premonition about a miscarriage that happened. My sister had a stroke. I had a premonition about her having a stroke. Let me get to the point. The one that I'm concerned about right now is a few months ago, I had a premonition about my brother-in-law. who was in very good health at that time. Didn't have any thoughts of him not being well in my mind at all to trigger, am I reading into something that's not there? Super healthy. He did have to go in for surgery for something unrelated to a health issue. And I had this precog where I saw him on a medical facility table, and he was laying on his back, and he looked very blue, and I felt myself not breathing, and there was somebody working on him. To this day, I still can't figure out whether that was a medical doctor or a mortician. It felt there was something urgent, and he was not breathing, and he was blue. I wrote all that down in my notes, in my notebook, and I didn't know how to talk to him or my sister about it. But I knew he was going in for a minor surgery. So I just kind of wanted to beat around the bush. And I said to my sister, did my brother-in-law get like the pre-admission testing done? Did they do his blood work, his EKG? And I figured, let me just like see if there's something going on that I don't want to bring this up right now. And she said, yeah, he had the pre-admission testing done. Everything was great. Everything's fine. And so I left it at that. Then a few weeks ago, she told me that everything was not fine. He actually has a serious heart issue, and they told him it's not operable, or it's not operable at this time, and he needs to go for other testing, and he doesn't want to go. He's kind of poo-pooing it away. So having had this precog kind of a scene, a video that played for me in my mind's eye, I'm hesitant to talk to them about this because friends and family kind of look at you when you start talking about, oh, I'm a medium now, and I can do psychic readings, and I talk to dead people, and it kind of feels like you're selling Amway. I kind of feel like I'm a network marketer, so I tend not to talk about it too much. This sister
That's
is very
hilarious.
open.
Sorry, I just think it's a hilarious.
Who needs some soap?
Yeah.
So this sister is open to this, but my brother-in-law is not. He kind of walks out of the room if he hears us, talking about mediumship and things. So I don't know how to handle this. I don't want to scare them. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I'm wrong. And I don't want to not do anything either, because I feel so strongly that was a message that for me to give to them, that he needs to take this seriously. And
so you don't have to utilize the fact that you got it as a premonition to advocate for that outcome. So you don't have to ever mention, hey, this is what I saw and what I experienced, to get yourself to be the person that really pushes this forward. So we don't really need to use the weight of I had a psychic vision and therefore. You can just really advocate for it and be like, this is serious and you should really take this seriously. So it's not a requirement that you tell them the why. You are saying that you could just do that because you're a concerned, caring, sister. So, I think that it's important for you to recognize that the audience matters. And if either they or one of them is not open to it already, it's going to be less effective for you to necessarily frame it in that way. If they're open to that and they already know, that you have proven yourself to be accurate in other ways, et cetera, that might be a different conversation. But I would say, because if that was the case, then you already have rapport with them and you can tell them in that context. But in general, I think what is important is to recognize that we may be aware of things, and this is kind of the, I guess, curse of the seer in some way, that when you can know the future, sometimes you don't want to know it, number one, but number two, there's going to be times where you're going to see something that you can do nothing about, right? So for example, the accident with the ship thing in the bridge. So
it's falling.
that's something that you could do nothing about, but yet you were aware of it. So in this instance, it sounds like you do have some agency to try to do something, but you don't have to necessarily frame it in a way of, because I am psychic, you should listen to me. Instead, you just frame it as a concerned person and that you really want them to take this seriously, because ultimately that's the truth of it, right? Like the truth is you want to help him so that he feels okay and everything works out and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah. I've been, it's been a couple weeks. I want to wait till after the holidays. I don't want to bring this up now. I'm seriously concerned about him though. This vision was so real and so sharp, and I knew it was him. And it's just a hard conversation to have, whether I tell him that I got this through a premonition or whether I just talk out of it out of concern. I feel like my sister will definitely take it more seriously if I mention that I had this premonition. My brother-in-law is going to think I'm selling Amway.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's one of those things that you kind of have to use your judgment with. I mean, you can still, like I said, you can always still emphasize this without necessarily saying it's because of the premonition. However, if you feel like that is supportive, it's kind of a judgment call. Then you could mention that. I don't think it's necessary to mention that. I don't think that adds anything to it, because we can be wrong, right? So for me, I think it's better for you, like what I would do if this was me, I wouldn't even, this is me. I'm not saying this is what you should do. I'm saying this is what I would do just as Michael Mayo. I don't like to utilize those things as like evidence for why you should do something. I just treat it as if I didn't have the premonition and I just care anyway, because that's the reality anyway. Like the outcome is the same. If I'm advocating strongly for this person to be okay, do you know what I mean? Like that, it's the same thing. It's all the same weight. It's the same thing in my mind anyway, because we can be wrong, and I wouldn't want to add any unnecessary fear.
My goal was to make sure that I let them know that I'm concerned and I want him to take care of himself. And I like your approach. I don't need to come at him with guns blaring and big loud big loud attitude. I think just a heart to heart would be a good place to start.
100%. The other thing I would throw in here too is like, this is the difficult thing of when you have a particularly intuitive, psychic sort of person. When I get intuitive psychic hits about my own life and there's the outcome that I don't want, I freaking hate that, because I'm just like, damn it, I already know this thing that I really want to work out is not going to happen. And I'm like, this sucks. But, I always try to set that aside and be like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not going to happen. And then I try to just see what happens. And generally, if I feel that feeling, I'm pretty much right. So here's the thing. We won't always have the agency or the power to change something that we perceive, nor is it necessarily our responsibility to do something about things that we see and perceive. Can you? Yes. But I don't want it to become every sort of perception that I have then becomes my responsibility to have to communicate that, because sometimes we're just picking up things from the atmosphere and the ether. It's not necessarily a direct message like, Anne Marie, I bestow this message unto thee that you must now go solve this problem. It's just information, right? It's just something that's there. So I just want to just give you that so that way you don't feel this sort of responsibility every time you have something like that. Can they be useful and can they be helpful? Yes. But as I mentioned before, we don't have to necessarily use the weight of a premonition to convince someone. You can just be a strong advocate anyway.
Yeah, I like that. This is still, new to me, getting these things. It's happening frequently. I do like getting premonitions.
Mhm.
I find it really cool and fascinating. And I find it a very useful tool in my relationships. The weird things that happen, right? Like the sailboat, like why did I see that? I don't know.
Yeah,
But
there's a mixture of things
I think it's
because
cool.
part of it is us tuning into, as Jung might have called it, the collective unconscious. And it's sort of like you have a radio wave and you're turning through the dials, and sometimes you pick up on a station you're not necessarily looking for, but you picked up on the station, so you heard something. This is kind of similar, where you get a sense of something's going to happen, something is happening, and you may not have anything to do with you, yet you pick up on that. I mean, in 9/11, there's a huge influx of people who were aware and who had been reporting, because there's this premonition database. I forget what it's called, but like there's this group that created this database of um, all the premonition things, and then what they do is they look at the averages and things like that to see, accuracy of these kinds of things. They believe that there's some sort of collective information that is out there that many sensitive people will pick up on, and so they contribute to this sort of database thing. um, and then they look based off of that. So that is something. So that is a perfect example of what I mean when I say we can be picking up on sort of just what's there. That's different from picking up from someone specifically that I know, which is a different thing, kind of similar, but different. It's the same faculty, but just the
Mhm.
source is different.
Yeah. No, this is great. This is really helpful. I know I'm going to continue to have more of these kind of premonitions. It's something that I am interested in, and I welcome it. So
Mhm.
it's just how to handle it, and that's really good advice. It's just a heart to heart. That's really all that matters.
That is
Doesn't
really all
matter
that matters.
where these thoughts of mine came from. It's just having a heart to heart with them.
Exactly. Especially if
Cool.
it's someone, because A, it eliminates chance of fear. Because even if someone doesn't believe in it, there might be a little part of them that holds on to anxiety or fear around that. We don't really want to give people that anxiety or fear, so it avoids that. And then it also is ultimately what the truth of it is that you care about him and you want him to be okay. So if you're just speaking from that space, that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Thank you. Thank you for giving me your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, my pleasure. Um, Mark, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I, I didn't know what to expect. I thought I would just be observing, but I'm glad there's opportunities to ask a question.
Yeah.
And this could stem in, I guess I emailed you as well in regards to taking one of your courses. But I've noticed, and I've been studying for the past 3 years under different teachers, and I've, have done professional readings with friends and clients. I've done, simple small group engagement as well. And throughout my learnings, I've realized what my strengths are and what areas that I may not be strong in. And I'm getting a lot of conflicting, I guess, teachings in regards to what would be a primary skill or even a clair that I have.
Sure.
So I'll give you an example. One psychism course I took, one of the sections was animal communication.
Okay.
Never done that before. We did activities that I would say I was successful, but it wasn't as successful as I expected it to be.
Sure.
The reason why is when I was partnered with an individual, a lot of their past pets that passed on kept popping up for me. And I was not able to really direct my energy to her living pet. But when I did, I was still able to get some messages from that experience. And when I brought it up to the instructor, the teacher, she says, well, that would make sense. You're a medium. So you would kind of channel a lot of her past pets. So that kind of made sense for me, but it also made me realize maybe I'm not an animal communicator, right? And then the second example would be the different types of clairs. I I know I'm a clairvoyant. I see things primarily in my third eye or in the physical space that I'm in. But when it comes to doing mediumship connection, spiritual connection, there are times where I'll hear things, or I'll smell things, I'll feel things. And in a recent course that I took, which I think someone had taken your foundation courses, kept pushing me to see what I would hear, or messages I would hear. And again, I felt I'm not necessarily a clairaudient, so it wasn't like my strongest suit, but I would see images, see things. So I'm wondering, you know, is it true that it's going to depend on the spirit on how they want to communicate with the medium? I was taught very early on with one of my first teachers that if a spirit wants to communicate through sound, they will, or images, they will. So I'm just wondering, do I not get spirits who want to say things or allow me to hear things because I'm not a clairaudient? I'm more of a clairvoyant. So that's what I'm kind of pondering with recently.
Yeah. So a couple of things. Thank you. First of all, thank you for the question. This is a great question. A couple of things I would point out. One can get past pets or past loved ones solely psychically. So I just want to highlight that. So like I could technically do a reading for you where I am not aware of presence of spirit, but I am getting accurate information about your past, because when we work psychically, we can attune to the timeline of the individual, and just similarly to how we would sense maybe presence or something like that, we can describe a person that is in someone's past, not necessarily having them there with us as a spirit where we feel them, we know that they're there. We can, like, so for example, when I'm doing a psychic reading and someone is interested in knowing about these different people in their lives that they're maybe potentially dating or something like that, I can sense their sort of signature ball of energy thing, like around me, and I can describe this person and I can describe that person and give you facts and details and things about their lives, that if I wanted to, could make it look like it's a mediumistic message, right? Oh, I have your partner here and he's in spirit and da da da, even though I never feel them around me. It's just a matter of me moving into the timeline, feeling that relationship, and being able to describe the person that's connected to that relationship. That would be a psychic perception, and I'm able to do that. So just because you perceived past animals doesn't necessarily mean that you were picking those up mediumistically. That could have been a psychic link, but just to the timeline of her pets, and you were able to describe the ones in the past. So I just want to differentiate that that is a possibility. But secondly, let's say you did have presence and you felt those pets there. One thing that we would want to instruct there would be, how do I take my attention to where I want it to go? So, sorry, I knocked over my phone. So for example, if I want my attention to be, like someone's coming to me for a psychic reading specifically, not a mediumship reading, or vice versa, I need to be able to do that task. Now, obviously, when we're working out in the world, it's okay for there to be some sort of overlap between psychic and mediumship, as long as you communicate that to your sitter. Like, oh, I'm getting this psychically, not mediumistically. Because you don't want to say, I'm getting this from your loved one, but really you're just getting it psychically, right? So we want, in a development, for development purposes, to be able to just do one. You either can get psychic information or just get mediumistic. So then what I would want to do, if the exercise was psychic specifically and you're meant to pick up on the information from the pet, what would need to be done there is just to adjust your attention so that you are kind of, I think of it like your awareness as flashlight. So it's like sort of like changing my flashlight. So maybe when you were initially connecting in, if there was spirit around you, your flashlight was kind of pointed towards the spirit animals, versus the flashlight being pointed towards what's presently here. So it's just about learning to adjust our attention, because intention is really what adjusts that flashlight. That's really like the foundation of it. So that's kind of the first thing that I want to say. Did you want to respond to that at all, or?
No, that totally makes sense, because eventually I was able to, connect with her living animal, which eventually I saw the health situation of that animal. So that makes sense. Thank
Were
you.
you able to, did you have to do anything to change your sort of attention, or were you just kind of like cycling through and like, okay, I gave all of that, now who's here?
Yeah, I think at that moment I was cycling through, because I was mentioned, like, her pet was not on camera at that moment. So I had to kind of cyclically connect. But then eventually her past pets would pop up. And then eventually I was able to kind of mention what I saw, and she verified that, yeah, that's my living pet. And then I saw what was wrong with the pet health wise. And eventually she brought him on camera.
Yeah, okay. So it just sounds like you just needed a little bit clearer target. Not necessarily that you needed to have the pet on screen, but just within yourself, rather than kind of being, I'm just open to anything. It needed just slightly more intention. Like, I'm open to anything about this animal, about her current pet. So you would just have needed just that ever so slight intent that I'm connecting into specifically the current living animal, and that would likely have kind of just got you directly to it without having to kind of go through the other things.
That makes sense.
So that would be the first thing. And then the second thing regarding the clairs, I really want to move away from an idea that anyone is a blank. Nobody is a blank. Everybody is everything. So just like right now, you can see, you can hear, you can feel, you can touch. All of that is available to us. What I have noticed, though, is that there are certain things that occur that will diminish or inhibit some of the other clairs expression. Number one, some people emphasize clairvoyance too much, meaning that they put so much attention to what they see, because as human beings, we are visual creatures. That's like we use a lot of energy towards vision. So our desire ends up going, okay, I'm just going to follow these pictures, these pictures, these pictures, these pictures, to the exclusion or the low volume of what I'm feeling and what I'm hearing. So it's not so much that it has to do with the spirit communicator necessarily. It's more so to do with the openness and availability of the medium. So number one, I get a lot of students who come to me who are like very clairvoyant, but then maybe don't feel a whole lot. Or maybe they're clairvoyant and clairaudient and they don't feel a whole lot. Or they're very feely, but they don't see and they don't hear. And so what we work on is we work on trying to do the things that are going to help support opening the other clairs. A couple of things that do that. Number one is sitting in the power. So making sure that you're sitting in the power regularly is going to help to open the other clairs. Secondly, when you're sitting in the power, you want to not focus on the pictures. In fact, I would invite you to ignore the images altogether and focus on the feeling, tingling, buzzing, warmth, heaviness, thickness in the atmosphere, that sort of thing. That is what I would recommend, because it helps to build a more solid foundation of feeling as a core part of it. In my feeling, my personal opinion, based off of years of teaching, I feel that the best mediums develop with clairsentience as a base, because clairsentience provides context to what you're seeing, and it also provides sensing the power and feeling the power shift and change, because ultimately that's the most important thing in mediumship. So I would want to develop the clairsentience more. And then what happens is the more that I learn how to surrender, which is sort of felt, it's the more that I surrender, I can actually feel that I'm surrendering more, because the power grows and the energy thickens and I can feel more intensity. So the more that I can use my clairsentience, what that often does is it gives me a barometer of how much I'm letting go. The more that I can let go, the more likely my clairaudience will kick in as well. So I tend to notice that clairaudience seems to be one of the later clairs that sort of open. And by later, I just mean in a reading. And I say that only in this idea that the more surrendered I am is the more my clairaudience is on. When I'm too sort of present or too thinking about what I'm doing or have too much tension in my work, clairaudience doesn't seem to be as available. So if I'm spending a lot of time on my images and I'm not letting myself relax into the feeling as much, I may not feel like I can get clairaudience because my attention is too much dialed up on vision and not enough into these other spaces of surrender and relax. Does that make sense?
No, that totally makes sense. Just as you speak and I reflect on the first teacher I had, it was very much evident. It was very heavy on evidence, and specifically, what evidence do you see, right? And I think that ties in to what you said. Humanistically, we like to see things, and not to say I didn't get anything audiently or sentiently, but because I did. But that would make sense to the point where I feel like maybe I'm relying too much on that Claire versus the others. Because in the psychic course that I took, which that teacher was great about, was making sure I check in on each Claire to see what I would get as I'm working with a client or a spirit. And this really does answer. Not to bring up the email I sent you, I think this answers me wanting to register for level 1 now, just because I feel that. So you don't have to respond to my email,
Okay.
because I think I'm always going to be learning, and that's even in my own profession. I am still learning, and I think in this my own spiritual mediumship, psychic development, I think this is where I need to realize I still have more to learn. And I think signing up for your Foundations 1 course is going to be in my future. So yeah, no need to respond to my email.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and make sure that I'm available during those dates. So thank you. No, it makes total sense.
I thought your name looked familiar. I was like, oh, I feel like I know this name for some reason, probably because I read your email. So
there's also a celebrity with that name, but unfortunately I'm not that famous person.
That's okay. I don't know anything about celebrities, so I won't know anyway. But one thing that I think is, 2 things actually I hear that are really good. Number one, you have the mindset of someone who wants to continuously grow and learn. And those are definitely the students that we want at Oakbridge, because there's an openness. Even though you have other experiences, even though you have this sort of thing, that is the mindset of someone who will truly master this. I mean, Anne Marie's a really great example of this. Anne Marie was very persistent, came to everything, did everything she could, even outside of what we were doing. And she's killing it these days. She's doing a really great job with her work. And so when you have people who are open to always learn, because that's my mentality too. Like, I've been developing my mediumship for, in February, 20 years, and I feel like a baby. I feel like I don't know shit. Like I feel like I know some things and I have some things to share, and I'm always open to setting aside what I think I know so that I'm open to things to work in an entirely different way than I think. And I think it's a really powerful way to do that. So I loved hearing that in your response. And then the other thing, I want to break down anything that is limiting you, meaning anything that makes you feel like, oh, I can do this, but I can't do this. I don't want that in anything you do, because you are a spiritual being having a human experience right now. And therefore, the default you is the spirit. And so all we have to learn to do is get out of our thinking mind, remove tension, and allow ourselves to surrender to whatever is present in the energy through feeling and other clairs. And that's how we're able to access more of what we already are. That's why Anne Marie's picking up on random things in the universe, because it's coming in, because she's staying open and receptive and allowing things to happen to her, not come from her, right? So all of these things, it's about less of us, more of us connecting into the bigger part of us. And that's where we have access to all of this information. So what we teach students, we don't teach you do this technique and therefore you will get, a name, or do this technique and now you'll understand the relationship. What we teach you are the foundational principles of how this other awareness works. And everything you learn in Foundations, you will always use. It's why it's in Foundations. In fact, Foundations is the central piece to everything we do after it. So what you learn there is going to teach you everything you need to know so that I could throw remote viewing at you. I could throw trance mediumship at you. I could throw healing at you. And you're going to be able to do it because you understand the principles of how to surrender, allow, trust, and let things occur, which is sort of these underlying principles that exist for this other awareness that we all have.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. So hopefully that is helpful. I'm just going to quickly scan through this and see if there's questions that I missed. Give me 1 second. Let's see my tickety talker people. Let's see. Just scrolling through here quickly. Thanks for everyone who says my tree is pretty. So is clairvoyant the same as a medium? So that term is actually used to refer to a medium historically. Clairvoyance is a specific psychic faculty. So it is clear seeing, clair meaning clear, and then voyance being seeing, is a psychic sight. And a clairvoyant is a shorthand term for a medium or psychic. Let's see, just scrolling to nearly there now. Jess says, I still go back to some of the foundation nuggets years later. I mean, I go back to foundation nuggets all the time. Spirits come to me in my dreams. Sometimes I remember only sometimes what they say, not always. How can I fix that? You can start by writing down your dreams. So if you keep a dream journal, you remember your dreams more and more and more and more, just by training your awareness to make that an important thing, just by writing it down. That's a way that you can do that. Michael, how come you don't do live readings anymore? I do. I just don't do them often as I was doing it. Largely just because life is busier right now for me. And so if I do have a little bit of free time to just kind of chill, I do that. Also, I still demonstrate in other things, not necessarily just like on TikTok and things. So this month, I have actually already done 2 demonstrations, and I have a third one coming up at the end of the year. So I still do readings publicly. I just don't necessarily always do them online on these platforms. When I sit in the power, do sessions, I leap rapidly to angelic realms or more Akashic energy, but really struggle to connect with closer timeline to family, having a hard time shifting energy. That is going to be about, I would do 2 things. Number one, I would reflect on, is there a part of me that gets intimidated by something that can be easily validated? Because sometimes what happens is people will go to an angelic realm because that feels some sort of less pressure on them. So that's one thing. Number 2, Akashic energy is essentially psychic energy. I think it's just a fancy name to describe psychic sort of awareness. We like to give names to things, don't we? So part of it can also be just discipline. So learning how to, I'm just going to here, and holding a boundary with yourself to not allow yourself to shoot past that thing. I think we too often in sort of the spiritual area of development is that people will be taught, go to the highest and the brightest and like all of these sorts of things, as if that's like somehow better than. And I want to highlight that what's important is usefulness, at least in my opinion. What is useful? If I just jump straight to the angelic realm, how am I ever going to connect in with loved ones in spirit? How am I going to get accurate, specific information about things that are happening here and now, what you did yesterday, what you ate yesterday? That's why for me, less impressive information, just as me, Michael Mayo, just talking, is things like childhood traumas. That's less impressive in a psychic reading, only because it's the most obvious. If you go into someone's energy, that is like looking for a billboard with flashing lights and like the big thing because those are the most repeated patterns that they've had all this time. So you have this really obvious thing going on there. So for me, less impressive. What's really impressive to me? What you did yesterday, what you did just before this, something that you were watching earlier, more impressive, only because it's in a different layer of the aura. You're feeling something that is more subtle, more fine in some way. That to me is really interesting. Being able to move in the timeline, that is also very interesting. Being able to go to past and then the present and then the future, that is valuable to me personally because it shows that you have an understanding. It shows that you have a discipline in knowing how to direct your attention. If every time I try to do something and I just go wherever I end up, then that tells me that we need a little bit more development in being able to move through the process without overshooting it or without kind of not going where you want to go. You're just kind of going wherever you end up, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but again, usefulness. Is it useful to me to be able to do that? Would it be more useful for me to know exactly where I want to go and be able to directly go to the topic, directly go to whatever's going on for that person, etc. So I would point that out, that's important to know. So what I would do is start when you're sitting, stay within this bubble that is directly around you. That is all you need to do to stay connected to both spirit and also the other world, essentially. So if you just keep your attention sort of like arm's length around you and then just allow yourself to soften and relax, soften and relax, soften and relax, you will stay in a sort of vicinity, if you will, that feels both grounded and connected at the same time without overshooting anything, without trying to get too far. So I think that that is a really, really, really important thing. You're just clarifying here by Akashic, I mean suddenly seeing past lives that are impacting this lifetime. So for me, usefulness, again, we'll come back to usefulness. It would be useful in that it's impacting this lifetime. That is a piece that is useful. However, you can just look at this lifetime and be able to get information that is also useful, and one might argue even more useful than looking to the past life for the problem. So I would encourage a sort of discipline and be like, I'm only going to be aware of this life for now. The problem with past lives is that they can't be validated unless someone is bringing through enough evidence that you can now go Google this and look this up and go to the place and recognize things, and you're providing that level of evidence. Past lives can be anything, and people can just get an archetype of like a personality. Oh, you were a witch. I'm not saying you do this, Sonia, by any means, but I'm just using this as an example. Oh, you were a witch and you're persecuted and you weren't accepted for being different and all that sort of thing. And now you have struggled with anxiety because you were a witch. I mean, we all seen probably that Sylvia Brown clip where someone asked, I struggle with really bad anxiety. And she goes, honey, it was because you were a witch in a past life and you were burned. And now you're struggling with that in this life, right? Like that's what she did. And I was just like, all right, chill, bro. Like that's not anything. So, but there's no point in looking at past lives if Dana, honey, the land. I know that's my favorite. I say that line all the time now. So I think there is value sometimes in going into past lives. But in general, there's not a need. You can get everything you need to know to support someone just by looking at this life. And so it's just a matter of becoming more comfortable with being right and being wrong, with getting things that are validatable, with being comfortable in clear, specific, and accurate information. And you're going to get a lot of no's before you get a ton of yeses in that developmental process. So that's something you have to accept and be okay with, because otherwise we get tension and then we sort of lean into things that maybe aren't as validatable. And we want that. That's what we want. To me, it's very impressive when someone can be thinking of a missing persons case, and then I can literally just give them exactly what's going on, details about that thing. They don't even have to know the information. I just have a target and I can just get the information about what's going on there. To me, that is more impressive than going in 19 past lives ago, you experienced da 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 da. So usefulness, right? The usefulness of the information is kind of where I land as what's important. But maybe that's my Capricorn rising. I don't know. I like clear, understandable, useful information. So anyway, that's my kind of response. How come it's harder for my own people to come through? Do you mean when you're getting a reading or you're doing a reading, Debbie? That's something I'm curious about. If you're doing a reading, it's because we may feel like we know the information, and it's harder to separate ourselves from the information and be objective, which can feel more difficult. If it's because you're getting a reading, that I'm not sure. It depends on the quality and the level of development of the medium, which will likely be more of what's going on there. So I would need that clarification. Michael, I don't know, I already did that one. I appreciate your work. Thank you so much. I saw you were in a demonstration in a group I'm in, but I missed it. Alexandra's. Yeah, I just did Alexandra's yesterday. It went well. Is your book on Audible yet? Yeah, here's my problem right now. My problem with that is that I have to listen through the whole thing to decide if I like it, so I can send it to the guy that will then send it to the thing. So what I might do is I might take a couple of volunteers to listen to a chapter and tell me if there's anything wrong with it, because I do not have the patience to sit and listen to my whole audiobook. I already had to read through the thing when I recorded the audiobook, and now I have to listen through it again. So I may have to just do some sort of thing like that so that we can just get it quickly done and get it out there, because I don't have the patience. I have way too many things on my things to do than sit and listen to myself talk for hours. So anyway, do you know if there's any literature on spiritual communication from spirit's perspective? Yes. So in a lot of spiritualist information, you will see things like direct voice mediumship that might have some of that. Like Elizabeth Blake is an example of this. You might get some of that from Red Cloud as well, which was a guide of Estelle Harris. You might also get that from any kind of direct voice medium. You'll probably get that. There's a ton of Leslie Flint on YouTube that you can look up and listen to, where they talk about that as well. It's definitely out there. You just have to look into spiritualist writings, either through trance or trance or direct voice, some sort of physical mediumship. Janelle, you're also Capricorn rising. Nice. Okay. Does Anne-Marie or Mark have any other questions?
No, I don't. Thank you so much. That was really helpful.
Okay, good. Awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm good for now, and I appreciate your feedback, and I'll be in your class soon.
Amazing. I'm really excited to have you.
Yeah.
Definitely what we always try to say is, when you go into Foundations 1, I want you to think of it not as Foundations 1, 2, 3, but as Foundations as a whole. That is the full thing to understand what we want you to understand. That's what I recommend, is just viewing it as you're doing 1, 2, and 3. Otherwise, you're just getting a third of the class. So just keep that in mind. And you'll like it. I mean, it's a really good, solid thing. And if you enjoy my feedback here, you're gonna love what we throw at you. And then you don't only just get me, you get Megan too, which is also amazing. I met my own people. I'm a medium. Okay, perfect, Debbie. So the answer is essentially we have to learn how to become passive, receptive, and indifferent about the outcome. And you have to treat your own loved ones as if they are someone you don't even know. And that way you can start to feel them a little bit clearer. And even if you know something about, for example, when one of my best friends comes through in spirit, I focus on what does the essence and the feeling feel like as she is with me. And then I relax into that, just like I would do with a normal spirit communicator. And I feel the growth and the connection building as I relax and surrender into her presence. And when I get a nice blending with my loved one in spirit, that's when she can bring me information. But I don't sit there and go, okay, loved one, come here, tell me something. That's not really how I do it. I want to make sure that I am indifferent about the outcome. I'm detached from what she wants to bring. I keep myself as neutral as possible so that I can accurately perceive information from my own loved ones. Make sense? Claudette says, I'm joining your class in the new year. I can't wait. Yes, do. Everybody should join. It's a really good class. If you're interested in developing your mediumship, it's definitely helpful. What percent of you coming on tonight so I can gauge a probability? Low percentage. No, maybe not. I don't know. I'm trying to think. What am I doing for dinner? Because lately we've been cooking a lot too, and that takes a lot. So for a long time, I would just like quickly go grab some food. Anyone who watched my live, you see me eat Chipotle like 700 times. Not literally eating it on the live, but you see me with my drink. But so I'm not eating out as much. I'm working at home. I'm doing a lot of things. But you know what? Christine, my spirit artist friend, is going to be here from England. She's spending the Christmas and New Year with me. And she and I will likely go live at some point and do a little spirit art dem just so that you can see that. And also for anyone who is in Southern California, I am doing a demonstration with her on at Awakenings Bookstore on the 27th at 7 o'clock. So you can come live and see us and check it out. So yeah.
What platform would you be doing the live with?
With Christine?
Mhm.
Either, well, it'll probably go across all my platforms. So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Anne Marie, for also being here. And everybody who asked questions in the chat, I really, really appreciate it. If you are interested in working with us in the new year, because Oakbridge is now officially on break for the holiday season, you can visit oakbridgeinstitute.org. If you're new to mediumship or psychic awareness, I highly recommend working in our foundations. One class, that's what you should register for. And yeah, I think that's everything. And also we will be starting a psychism course for Psychism 1, which is another option for you as well. So oakbridgeinstitute.org. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We will see you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, now I have to end all the streams and all the streams.